Hey everyone, Ben here, and I need your help. But first, I've got a question for all of you iRacers. Does the current way that iRacing is structured essentially trap and prevent you from getting the most out of the content that you own on the sim? Well, let me put it another way. Have you ever found yourself making steady progress in a particular type of car? Let's say the Dallara F3. Boosting your I rating over a season or so, only to then hop across for a bit of GT racing and find that you're now up against far more adept GT racers, and you're also struggling to get to grips with a fundamentally different car. That was my experience this week after a really enjoyable and moderately successful session in the F3 at Laguna Seca. I tried my hand at the Ferrari Fixed at Silverstone, and well, I was hugely off the pace. Now, regular viewers will know I'm quite often off the pace. It doesn't bother me that I'm not at the front of the grid all the time, although of course I'd quite like to be. And I don't mind losing the odd bit of I rating here and there either. What I want most of all is clean and competitive racing, whatever position that it's over. But I'll be honest, so much of a struggle was the Ferrari race, it didn't fill me with enthusiasm for hopping back in to another race in that series, either as a one-off or as a means to practice and improve. Because to be placed in splits where I could be realistically competitive, I think I'd probably need to see my I rating drop by about 20% back to 1.8k or thereabouts. That's going to take quite a bit of time running multiple not very enjoyable races, and I just don't have the spare capacity to do it. And of course, as things stand, lowering my I rating in that way would then interfere with my progress in the Formula 3. So the most likely thing for me to do is just not to pick up the Ferrari or perhaps the wider GT3 class again, at least not for a long while. That's a shame because A, I've paid for the content, and B, it can be a lot of fun. But ultimately, I suspect I'm not the only person in this situation. To try and fix this problem, you have to understand how iRacing is currently structured. At the moment, you have 4 separate I ratings, each attached to a different car type. There's road racing, oval, dirt road racing, and dirt oval. My suggestion, to help with the challenge that I've outlined, would be to split up the road racing car type into a few separate and discrete categories. The question is, how would you do it? And here's where you come in. I'd love to hear your suggestions in the comments. To my mind, there's a few ways you might do it. You could look to have separate road racing car types organised around the defining car characteristics. So for example, whether the vehicles are rear wheel drive, front wheel drive or open wheel. Most sim racers will know hopping into each of these different categories presents a whole host of different challenges, and you'll feel more naturally capable at some rather than others. The advantage here would be there should be some skill and experience read across between vehicles in the same category, even if things like engine power or driver aids varied. But I think probably the most straightforward shift, and one which would essentially reflect the implied career paths within iRacing's existing license class system, would be to split road racing into sports cars, open wheel cars and touring cars. In sports cars, you bring together things like the Radical, GT4, GT3, LMP3, LMP2 and LMDH cars, allowing you to move through the license classes and progress your career in a meaningful way. In open wheel, you'd bring together things like the Formula D, C, B and A series and the Formula USA series. And in touring, you'd bring together things like the TCR, Aussie supercars, Brazilian stock cars and the various cup car series in the game as well. The advantage of this is that it would allow you to progress multiple iRacing careers at the same time without having to pay a penalty for being quicker in specific types of racing over others. Yes, iRacing can be very enjoyable when you specialise in a particular class of cars and attempt to improve over time. But what if these kinds of changes could open up the possibility, at least, of doing that more easily across multiple classes, and perhaps even allow you to become a more rounded driver in the process? Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. I'd love to hear your suggestions. And if you're curious about other changes that I think could radically improve sim racing, you'll love the video that's on screen now.